Fortunately, this is a general meeting, so we do not have strict time limits on when we have to get started. So, but hopefully we'll get started in just a minute here. Staff present, for the record, are Skelly, Needham, Volp, Missa, Echo, CC, Chief, and Frumple. And absentee voting information has been received from both Missa and Sinra. Yeah, why don't you get started with that, Frumple, just so that we can kind of get that news out of the way. Hi.
I clap, but I have push to talk on, so I could slap
You,
repeatedly if you want.
Trumple, you're just speaking into the void. No, you're fine.
You're good.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for letting us sharing that and letting us know of all of that sort of stuff. That makes sense, and certainly exciting for those of us who, well, find a lot of value of hanging out around here to know that that we'll be around for another little while. So thank you. All right. Let's get into the meat of the meeting, shall we? So 5A is clarifying the 300-500 rule set and how that applies to third-party rail lines. So Frumple, this is your item.
And that is that's covered at least in the other rules, though, right? Because that'd be like, I wouldn't say griefing, but still in the sense covered by the other rules anyway.
It's still kind of modifying other people's builds and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've generally had the principle that rail lines themselves do not constitute claims that can enforce a 300-500 rule. But the reason that we have the IAT-ITB process is because they do need to respect the existing claims that are set by existing towns and stuff. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, if you want to get really technical, I know that I don't know this. So maybe it might be better to say there is a possibility that you could have an argument where how does it work with like elevated rail lines that have pillars and stuff like that? Like where do the borders go with that? I don't think we need to get into that right now because generally speaking, that's just been worked out between the appropriate entities. But I think just the general principle makes a lot of sense. My view on non-town structures is one, they're pretty rare. So that's not a huge, or on one hand, they're pretty rare, so it's not a huge amount of consideration. But on the other hand, that's how you start a town. is you have a couple of structures that are out in the middle of nowhere, or maybe you might be attached to an MRT station or something. And then that's the basis of how you start building a town. And if the rail line owner wants to come through and, it's like right after you start, well, now how does that fit in? So
I'm not really sure that's what Otto's asking here. I think his mainly just for like structures that were just there for the sake of being there, not really the sake of for making a town.
Yeah.
right.
Oh, I'd agree with that. If we were to look at it as a town, it'd probably have enough effort to be counted as councillor, or it's definitely town worthy.
I said in the forum channel earlier that we could say that structures that would count as a significant claim could have a 300 radius, while structures that are insignificant and on an expired claim would not.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also it's something that, like, I think generally we've agreed on what the conventions are for stuff like that, but it's not anything that we've written down. And we have intentionally left the definition of what counts as significant development slightly ambiguous, just because we're like, it's so case by case, just based on the amount of work and stuff that's gone into it. I mean, it's in theory, it is a useful measuring device, but it's missing, I think, a critical step.
I mean, they did. There's one right near this castle. Yeah, I mean, you can actually, it's direct. If you fly south of the castle, you'll hit it, and it's probably 100 blocks away at most. We could. Personally speaking, I think that'd be a good idea. And like, yeah, if they're not sure if it counts or not, they can always ask a staff in the same way that they would for another structure.
I'm just watching HVT and Kitty typing too, because I'm curious
Yeah.
what other third-party rails are thinking about this rule.
Yeah, I'm also thinking it's especially because we are like the 300, 500 rules, those are chessboard distance. They're not. So that's a pretty big square around what you have.
Again, though, would we define this castle as a town, though?
No, I think this is the question of, does the castle have a 300, 500 claim? Well, okay, now that's making me think. 300
Again,
the 300
Chief, you should look at
rules.
this. This is huge.
No, I recognize that it's huge, but it's not a town, or it hasn't been, like, it doesn't seem like it has the intention of being a town.
Well, we don't know that because we don't like we're turning into the heads here at heaven, but it's like I think we're going down.
Right.
I think we're going down a hole that we shouldn't really be going down.
Yep.
This might be a really stupid way to handle it, but a simple method of just having, requiring people to go, hey, if you want to slap down a sign somewhere in the structure indicating what it is, like, is this a town? Or is this just a one-off that you've built?
If it's a town, you should
no.
know. Volp, if it's a town, it should go through the ranking process. Or if it's unranked, and because unranked towns, we can register them if they're being transferred around. But if it's a town, there's a way that it gets documented.
Because I would agree to there, because all of Yoshi's stuff has Yoshi has built literally towns technically, but not actually registered them in the town ranks, and just left them as they are, and they're decently sized builds. Yoshi had no intention of those being towns.
Right.
I'm just trying to give some examples right now, but I'm mainly thinking here of Mole Gulch, all the mole sets really is what I'm kind of going at here for examples.
That actually gives me an idea. We actually asked folks to. I know we've said in the past that we don't want to do this, but if somebody does, they have started a town and they're actually building it, it's not yet ranked. Would it be possible to allow them to basically just, let us know and go, okay, we'll throw that on there because clearly you've expressed you have an interest of expanding this into a town, and you've got a few buildings already. Looks like you're going for councillor soon, but you don't know, you might have to go for a bit and yada yada. I think that'd be a very good way of registering it, and also keeping track of it because there's been so many structures that look like potential towns that no ownership, no registration, no coordinate.
I don't have a problem with that per se. I just know that the only case that would really apply is if someone is taking, just wants to take a long period of time to get up to councillor, because that's automatically happens once a town gets councillor. So I think it's a fairly moot point for the majority of people.
It could also just be if the player is cautious. They want to make absolutely sure.
Again, it's a valid idea and all that. I just think the number of people who are that's not, I think, a solution to the problem that we're looking at here.
Okay. I can only see one way it could be used for malice, so you might as well not get into that.
Right. So
yeah.
I mean, I think that the question, I think one of the fundamental questions that we need to look at here is, with the 300 and 500, with the protection rules, at what point do you receive that? And for sure we know that if you have a town that's ranked, for sure you receive the protection of those. But where's the threshold that you're crossing that?
I think
we're going to address that indirectly with this. So
honestly, I did come off as somebody who's actually, thinking we should protect these structures, but I actually wouldn't see this as being a bad thing to attach to council, both as a reward and as a, we're registering it anyways, yada yada. You might as well just have that all handled there.
If we did that, if we go with that Volt, then that solves the question of what we want to do with this rule, and say that it has to be that the protections only apply to ranked towns. That's one way we could go about it.
That's what Frumple was proposing.
Right.
We could.
The first before your alternate proposal.
If you want to build within 300 blocks of any town,
wait, question.
Okay.
Question, rather niche thing. I think it would be better just to attach it to if it's on the town list in general, because community towns are technically not ranked, and towns that we transfer, yada yada. It would also give us a good mean, like if we do want to specifically protect something, like it's not quite a town, but for some reason or another we do want to protect it, or the mayor specifically requested it be protected, or there's some other reason for it. We could also throw it on there and just have it if it's on that list, it's got its radius. It gives us a lot more flexibility, and it also prevents, people from arguing if community towns have this radius or not, because they're not ranked.
Essentially, this would be any towns that are registered. Like basically, whatever has the radius has to be registered. The protections, they have to be registered. So it can be registered as a town, or for these independent non-town structures, then they're like if there's a separate spot or similar spot to put them. Is that what you're proposing, Bob?
Yeah, I was about to mention that.
Yeah, so then that would allow people, if they wanted to register unranked towns, that they would be allowed but not required to do so.
It might also be good for us to just, in those cases, just actually do a little, a little sniff test, just while we're getting the coordinates, just to go, is this an actual development, or is this a gas station with a flag with a giant smiley face on it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's just, making sure that they're aware of it.
I can give an example of that. I literally created a town randomly off day 78. I have no intention of ranking it up. I literally just made it to be an abandoned town to enhance the look of the road. I don't care what happens to that thing. I just built it for the sake of it. I'm not gonna, for example, I think it's too insignificant to put it on the town list. The point being, just because it's like not ranked, I'm just trying to think of, for people that have the unranked towns, or the reason that they want it on the list is just to get the radius. And
so
I guess when the people put their unranked town, should we be mindful of how long it's like for the intention to keep that radius and to work on their town? Should we care about how long that unranked town is on the list?
I think
a side benefit of this is we'd have a lot better tracking of these objects, because there are times where I have gone on the week, I have actually tried to ascertain ownership of some old structure that it's not ranked, but just I think even having that, the coordinates and the mayor later down the line, we will probably have a few situations where we're pretty dang thankful for it.
So Stacey, I would say, I think unless we have reason to believe that something's being registered on the list with malicious intent, then I don't think that we need to worry about it at this stage. I think it's better to offer the option as a convenience and as fairness. And
I mean, I'm saying that it's a very thin line that's blurring further to know the intent there, because like it's hard to ascertain intent with a town.
we actually, we have a rule that says don't make excessive land claims. So like we can block under that rule if we need to. I mean, we have recently had to talk to a couple members. I know Noah, it took a few tries to get a town to find a space that he liked and get a town that started going up the ranks. And like I know that there were some conversations specifically around, hey, can you like either deregister or like not have so many claims. So okay.
I just realized this whole
registration list. Are we putting this with the town list and just renaming that to like I don't know what kind of better name for that, or be separate? Okay, so should we rename that though? Because it's not really.
Just make a new tab for it, maybe. If we need to.
I don't think that's a new town.
Okay.
And so then for one-off structures that are not intended to be towns that rank up and stuff like that, they're treated as towns for the purposes of this rule if they're registered.
Two things. Okay, one unrelated. Folks, if you're going to build stuff on here, please keep in mind that this is not actually just some random structures. That somebody built this, they own this. If you're just going to put rails everywhere, please make sure to clean it up afterwards.
And then what was your other thing?
Right. This is a hypothetical, but I think it's very easy to solve. It's actually the more I think about it, the more I like the solution. Somebody has an unranked town. They decide they want to jettison it. Do we just strip it off the town list, or?
As in, like they just want to abandon it and
Yeah, like if I build a few huts out somewhere and then lose momentum, lose motivation, or find something wrong with it, or just decide I just don't have the time, would it be possible for somebody to basically strip that off the town list and basically just maybe slap down a sign saying anybody can have this, and if it's now that it's off the town list?
That's, I would
So
say
we
if
have the
it's
remove town tab.
We could put a comment.
there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
remove town, or we could have a deregistered town.
well, so my thought is if it's unranked, I'm fine with that. If it has been ranked, I want to keep a record. Because well, but what I mean is I would be okay if, like, say the town owner requested, or like if they're going to abandon it, if it has been registered before, if they can come back to us and deregister and have us regen the area. Like if it gets regened, which we generally don't do once it's ranked. So, if it's
I
just
kind of like
straight up
Kitty's
abandoned,
idea.
if it's just straight up abandoned, then there shouldn't be any changes to yeah. So then maybe we could add a column of like if, or something in there just to note that it's registered, but it's waiving the protections. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Kitty.
Yeah, we could. Don't we have like a comment section? Yeah, we have a notes section in the town list. We can just put it there.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think it'll
General.
pop up very often. I don't think I don't think most people will waive rights unless it's it is an unranked town. They don't want to
If
expand
it's
on
an
much.
unranked abandoned town, that's generally the case that's going to happen. Yeah. Okay, so the solution is, so it sounds like, so number one, clarifying that rail line owners, they don't own the land around the rail line. Two, the rail lines, the tracks and stuff do not constitute claims that warrant or that create a 300 to 500 block protection zone. Rail lines do still have to follow that rule in terms of their planning and stuff. And we're clarifying that the protections of the 300, 500 rules, that those apply to registered towns and structures. And registered means either a town that gets to councilor or above, because then it gets automatically registered, or an unranked town that gets manually registered by request, or that gets transferred.
No, this isn't my moose. I'm just setting this on fire.
Okay. Uh,
Yeah, but and if they
Right.
were to register it, yeah, I suppose they could.
then so that yeah. So if you have a structure, then that means that you want to register it right away, because if something comes in before you register, then as far as we're concerned, it was legal. So
J-
that we
Yeah.
and we can't retroactively do stuff. Yeah, we're not making. Yeah. So Obi, to answer your question in the chat, yeah, if a structure is registered as something that is significant and we put it on the town list, then for the purposes of this rule, it would count, and rail lines that go within 300 need the permission of whoever built that structure. But if a structure is just built out in the middle of nowhere, and even if it's amazing, if it's not registered, that protection doesn't apply. Okay. Roads don't get protection at all. They're just like rails. They don't constitute a claim. So this is only for.
And we already have record of roads, of A roads and B roads with staff records anyway.
Yeah. So, and again, roads. I mean, roads. I believe no. Roads have their own.
What do you mean?
Roads
ignore
have to
Western
follow
towns?
this. Roads have to follow this procedure too. Essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, like
They follow the 300, 500 block rule.
yeah, like the reason that we require all that detail in the submission process is to make sure that you have at least checked along your proposed route. Needon is asking how much grace would we give for unregistered towns and structures? I don't know if we necessarily need to give any, because
We normally just do it with these rules,
yeah.
right, when the GSM ends.
Yeah, so it's like if you have something that you want to register, the sooner you email us, the better.
Do we want to do email, or
Otherwise-
do we allow also requests to staff?
RTS is
Yeah.
fine.
Because that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say. I was like, I think like a lot of these are kind of tiny enough. They could just put like coordinates.
Yeah,
maybe
I
pick
would-
and request staff and would be good enough.
Yeah, RTS is fine for that and for member towns. So
Yeah, and you just want what, the coordinates in like a picture, or what
we
would be a
need the
submission
coordinates. We need the coordinates. We need a name, and we need who owns it. And I mean, it's going to be registered under the person who posts it. So don't register other people's stuff. Yeah, I'm just saying. Okay, so yeah, so I mean, if you have an unranked a structure that's not officially registered, you can post and request the staff. We'll deal with those later today. But I would just say need an basically no grace period, and this would take effect right away. Okay. Any other comments, or are we good? I think. It seems like a good compromise. Good one, Volp, and thank you to Volp Kitty and whoever else in
Yay.
Auto for making the suggestions and contributing.
It's one of my
Okay.
only good ideas so far.
5B, which is looking at MRT World Heritage Sites.
London, would you like to get invited into the stage to present the topic?
I'm more just curious right now with those things we just did with 5A. How much of this is already covered by what we just did in 5A?
I think this is aiming at a different. This is a different question of motive.
I mean, he's saying to protect things that are technically significant, which they could technically register in that same sense.
Involuntarily, yeah.
Would we ever really have any issues with that? I mean, I suppose we could, but we don't think we've had issues in the forum. We can always just. But okay. Actually, I see why. Like, we don't always catch these things. Like, we have seen issues on the old world where we've not been able to track down griefing. Where we've noticed that something's happened months ago and we just don't spot it.
So London, if you could hit the request to speak button at the bottom of your Discord panel, then we will be able to bring you into the channel here so that you can kind of formally present this and be able to answer questions a little faster.
I agree with some of Autobus's criticisms. At the very least, I think we should defer to the August GSM until we get a solid list of how the process should work.
Okay, try talking, London.
Okay, so I brought this proposal up, all right, because I've had a look around, obviously, the server for quite a while now, and we've never had some sort of heritage site thing. So it's like, you know, the 9th anniversary is coming up, and like in 9 years, we've obviously seen the old world now been preserved, obviously, as like a heritage thing as well, like been preserved in its right, and also because there's been a lot of history obviously around what we've seen, like historical landmarks like designated like a World Heritage Site. So, you know, there's a lot obviously I've seen around. I mean, it's like, you know, we've got Stonehenge obviously where I am. We've got, you know, Hadrian's Wall. You know, it's all various. It's all various historical things. So what I was implying was, I mean, you know, Trump obviously had a bit of a talk about it and thought, you know, maybe add it to the proposal. I wanted to see what the community would think as well, because we didn't know, obviously, what people would think would be best, because we could then designate, like, for example, Yoshi's Manor, for example, obviously, which is, I think, somewhere over near Christmas Island somewhere. I mean, obviously, we've got a few buildings that are scattered around, so it's, you know, there's a lot. I mean, it's like, I can't name every one of them. But
London, question.
Well,
I know we do this IRL, but like, would we actually be protecting these with a region? Like, is there any? It makes sense if we're considering this from like a roleplay perspective, but as far as actual benefit goes, I'm not sure. Although I think the idea itself is actually pretty solid. Like, yeah, a way to recognize these landmarks. Like, hey, here's where something major happened, or hey, this is where something big happened. We could maybe note those somewhere, but I feel like protecting the World Guard is a bit excessive.
I mean, go on, Frample. Go on. Yeah, obviously with the World Guard, obviously, because obviously it's a protected region, obviously it's like for example, it's like a site of scientific interest, but obviously we can do it without the World Guard. I mean, we can note stuff down, obviously, where they are, obviously, as Volpe said, but, you know, with the World Guard region spaces to obviously stop anything, you know, stop anyone from griefing or, you know, for example, destroying it.
I think we've got some natural protections against that. Like, the member apps mean that griefing is already fairly rare, and that when we do discover it, we can usually roll it back pretty quickly. Although I do actually really like the concept of this though, and yeah, if we could potentially find some method of figuring out, okay, what actually is important, maybe we can have a little
That's kind
designated
of-
spot to warp to it.
I feel like that
Beyond-
gets
So-
into, like a very different. Gets into the.
Oh, yeah, it
what's the
does.
word here? It gets very into the eyes of the beholder what constitutes important and what's not.
Yeah,
Like,
we'd have to do
there's not
like
really
a
clear
discussion of that.
criteria. Yeah, there's not. I'm more curious what criteria you're thinking of, London, that constitutes of heritage site in this case.
Oh, I will also be. I have a very good potential point to make once he's done that. But...
Go on. Oh,
Oh, me first.
Yeah, London, if
Yeah.
you want to respond to Stacey, I think, and then
Like, I just wonder,
What-
like, what
what did
Caitlin
anyone
mentioned is,
say?
I'm
Go
just
on.
curious what kind of criteria you were thinking.
Well, yeah, I mean, the criteria I was thinking is obviously if, for example, there's like an old mayor or, because obviously premier cities are already protected from IATs. So obviously we weren't going to be heading obviously down that route particularly, but if we went down the route obviously of like that, what I was thinking was like we could basically say that obviously there's certain area. I mean, it's like the criteria would be if the building's been there for like say 5 to 7 years. I mean, obviously the old world had, the new world hasn't been. How long's the new world been going on for? Like 7 years now.
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah, 7 years now.
Yeah. So, for example, you could probably say that anything like, if there was a building or a landmark or something that was like 5 years old already and it's been on the server quite, and it's quite significant, like, for example, in events or, where there has been events unfolding, then, you probably would want to obviously say this event happened, this did that and all that. But obviously the criteria I was looking for,
Isn't
I
that
have an
almost
idea.
protecting all of Gamma at that point?
Yeah, that would. If it's based on time, then all of anything with coordinates up to 10,000 would be covered under that.
I have an idea and a potential candidate explanation. So there are actually some places where I think it actually has some merit. Have actually been little landmarks that have been destroyed. They're not quite what you'd think. Old members, do you remember at the end the old Tiger Line, how it used to extend really far out beyond where the last station was? And if you rode that to the very end, there was like almost like a little communal area. Like people would place down signs and banners and little jokes and talking to each other. That was destroyed by a mayor. That, I think, would be a prime example of what we could potentially protect. Like, yeah, we do have these old landmarks that used to represent the corner of worlds where a lot of people have more or less, like, yeah, they've placed signs there. They've actually flown out their curiosity and they've built little things. They've done little things, and they are at risk of being destroyed because they are, like the pillar at Frumple's house, where they are at risk of potentially being destroyed because they aren't actually protected. Somebody can build a town there and knock it down.
So I think we're conflating two different things here. I think there is, similar to the way that the UK does listed buildings, is they have grade 1 where you really can't do anything with it, and grade 2 where it's protected, but you can still make changes and stuff. And I think what it seems have resounding opinion about is we don't want to do any kind of like a grade 1 type deal where it is completely impossible to modify something or stuff like that, and especially with World Guard, like that seems a little impractical for the needs that the community has.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the notion of wanting to protect something that is significant, I think that has just been covered with the concept of registered towns and registered structures. And staff more or less have a litmus test of determining if it counts as significant development enough that we're going to want to put it on the list. And if it's on the list, then it's at least owner protected insofar as the standard rules of not modifying other people's stuff, that immediately that kicks in, and the 300-500 kicks in once it's registered that way.
So we could
well, hang on. Let me, if I could just make one more point that's one side that I think that a lot of us are gravitating towards is the concept of protecting things from being changed. The other side of this coin, and I think the the slightly easier to implement side of the coin is designating things as landmarks for the purposes of, say, marking them on Dynmap or having them available as warps in the Welcome Center, or essentially having landmarks designated so that, say, when guests come on or when people bring their friends on and want to show them around, that there's essentially a tour route that's pre-constructed. And I think that is certainly something that we could consider doing, because that's pretty minimal amount of work other than deciding the process of how something gets on. The main concern that I have with this is, of course, the process of deciding how something gets on. And specifically, somewhat related to that is the culture of the community and what we decide is culturally significant. That's going to change quite a bit. Like, for example, during the time of the mole, people are certainly gravitated towards the mole sets. But afterwards, they're kind of just a historical artifact that, yeah, are certainly like very well built. But in terms of a cultural event, it was for a single use. And I differentiate that with something like Christmas Island, where that's a recurring thing and very much is a part of everybody's experience. But I mean, the question of what is and what is not culturally significant, like that's also going to be in the eye of the beholder. So,
we could have a
go ahead.
We could have a community nomination. There's a proposal. Yeah, we have community nominations. Like, I would immediately put forth those little landmark towers where people have just built a bunch of signs and everything. There's others like that. Actually, when I was like a trustee, I built a pyramid in the southwest corner of Gamma, and over the years, I've just been watching it slowly accrue signs and general. Server's still here. Yep, so you're everything's okay, and just general little things around that. Like, I think that would be what we'd be looking for, where it is just things that have kind of come into being. Or like a spreadsheet in the staff docs.
No,
Yeah.
I really think that this doesn't need to be an official thing. I think, at least to begin with, this should be something that community members work on. Like on the old world, there's a bunch of stuff in Spawn City that has like a lapis block on it. This is like MRT historical official stamp or something. That was unofficial. That was just a bunch of people running around and, you know, just kind of reminiscing of, oh yeah, this was an important thing. So, I mean, I think replicating that would be a really good starting point. And if we wanted to make an official like tour route or mark them on Dynmap, I think that is a separate point of consideration.
I could potentially do so. We just put this like as like a table on the wiki. We could have like just be where people list reasons why they think it should be, and then others can just contribute. Like, okay, here's another reason. Here's another reason. I'm at the pyramid. Folks want to see it.
But again, and Katie, I think we would be selective about what even gets that marker. So, for example, Christmas Island, I would mark because that's pretty significant, and at least during that time of the year, it gets a lot of attention. ATC Airport, I would probably mark just because it's pretty big. There's a few others that I think are fairly spread out, but that would be marked. And then there's a ton that are still culturally significant that would not get marked. And I mean, I think cultural significance is a prerequisite to being marked, not the other way around. Okay, Needham, you responded to JTrain.
But by measuring cultural significance, how are we measuring that? Are we using, in the same sense, the premier kind of standard there? Okay.
So, yeah, well,
We could
yeah,
come back to
and
some like September GSM or something.
let's come back to it if there's a big enough list and we think that it's necessary and there's reason to do so. As of right now, I'm of the opinion that I am completely fine if this is being done unofficially by community members who just want to, collate a list or compile a list of cool stuff. And then if people want to go the next step and like actually protect it from transfers and stuff, well, you can't exactly protect it from IATs unless it's a premier town. But if it's something else and you want to protect development around it and make sure that we know who owns it, then registering it, that is an option.
I've got a bit of a question, actually. What about if you can't? Thing is, if you were to obviously designate something as a heritage, obviously, for example, obviously unofficially, how would we get permission from the mayor? If the mayor's not active, then how would we get permission? Because we can't just go around obviously just placing a sign saying this is it. And,
You're
you know.
not. So this is why we're doing it on the wiki, is because you can edit the wiki all you want and it doesn't break any of the rules of designating something in game.
Mhm.
I might try and get
Alright.
on that after the GSM. Like I can probably easily just set up a page, but I'll probably throw in a quick table so folks can get to work on that.
Volp, do you want to just make the page now, and then people who want to start editing it can do so right away?
Sure. What should I be calling?
List of culturally significant sites or something?
Sure.
Here, I'll
List of heritage sites.
there you go.
Oh, you made it?
No, I was saying there you go in response to Frumple. I haven't done anything on the wiki. Yeah.
What is this?
I think it's some kind of weird Hawaiian word.
All right, so it sounds like the consensus is that we're not going to do anything officially other than the thing that we just did in 5A, where people can register their towns if they want the protections that come with that. And community members can put together a list on the wiki of New World non-town sites, because premier towns, like, those are already marked, but or could be towns too. Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So then town and non-town things, if people want to propose them as a potential significant site and then debate about it. JTrain, yes, it does not have to be yours to be designated as a heritage site. So I think if community members want to come up with that list, I would encourage you guys to, if you're unsure about something.
I'll let you folks know when the table's ready.
Okay. I would encourage folks to use the talk page on the wiki as a place for debating that, because that's stapled right to the article itself. Or you can do it in Discord or whatever. If you're unsure of whether you think something counts, you can use that as a starting place of where. But yeah, I think having that on the wiki as a starting point would be good, and then we can revisit this at a later time if there's interest in doing something more officially, like, for example, marking some of them on Dynamap or setting up an official like tour route. That could be something that we can revisit based on this list.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Name, description, coordinates, reasons for protection / significance, and current status / danger.
Don't put protection, because things being put on this list are not protected. That is a separate process.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. So reasons for significance.
Yeah.
It's fully
Right now
unofficial.
right now it's like unofficially, here's the list of places that the community thinks are significant from, from like a cultural perspective, and or have history behind them and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
let's just throw in a temporary page. Yep, page is up. List of heritage sites. I will get a full description once the GSMs are. Try not to erase each other's edits.
Yeah. Oh God, here come the edit conflicts. All right, cool. Thank you for submitting this, London.
Yeah, it's
No
actually a really
worries.
good idea. I'm glad you got to this.
Look
Alrighty.
forward to seeing the list.
Great, and I'm going to kick you out to the audience now. Goodbye.
Cool.
Back with the peasants you go.
Okay. Cool. So that is that. I hope people are able to come up with some good stuff, and again, certainly use the talk page on the that's stapled to it if you want to discuss like an idea, but you're not sure of whether or not you want to put it on the list or whatever. Okay. 5C, allowing witness testimony as evidence for moderator nominations and feedback. We do have hearsay rules. Or I was going to say, or if it happened in voice chat too, this made me realize. I really like this idea. I think having the ability to use because also like in the heat of the moment, like if you're just playing around and you see stuff happen in chat of someone responding to something really well, or just having like demonstrating through their presence in voice chat or in game or however they do, and like in the heat of the moment, you're not going to be wanting to write stuff down necessarily or try and capture the logs. You might, but like that's something that you might come back to later, and that's a really valuable insight. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of this idea.
Yeah, I approve of this. I think it'd make nominations easier, and we already in a way rely on witness testimony just from staff members. But as Skelly says, though, a lot of it can be like, well, at least in game, it can be corroborated with Discord SRV.
Well, I think there's not all of it. I think some of it can be, like, for example, if there's an incident that someone doesn't remember the date of, but they can remember some of the details of, once that nomination gets published, then, if somebody else remembers it better and they know what date it was,
Yeah.
well, then they can corroborate it and submit something that backs it up. But there's a lot,
and the opposite
for
can
example,
happen. Somebody else can say, "Oh yeah, I don't remember this. I was there, and they went very different."
Exactly. So there's
Yeah.
I mean, it's all people's memory, and I think this opens the door to a huge, because I mean, as we have experienced, and this was a big deal for us back in 2013, 14, when we were all on voice all the time and really kind of getting to know each other and people just through that medium. I mean, the way that people hang out just when they're just socializing on voice can be very informative of how they get along with others in all sorts of situations, which is really valuable for us. So I think that's huge. The other thing, I mean, again, I think it's worth the drawbacks, especially if staff are vetting the incoming information to make sure that it's not, at least to make sure that, as Frumple, as you say, that it's not just unnecessarily vague, or just too vague to have any effect. But then I think just staff, as we are weighing the evidence in making our voting decision, I think that's going to come into play as well. And I hope that people will take that sort of thing into account. I mean, for those of you who are of the age where you can be summoned for jury duty, then this is a valuable skill that you may need if you ever get called in to serve on a jury, is dealing with weighing witness testimony and believability and all that sort of stuff. So it's certainly, I think that's fine to have that limitation as a part of it.
I always knew being on the MRT would train me for law school someday. I've learned that I can lie and say nullification, and I get out of anything. I mean, it's a daycare, it's a school, it's a quarantine lunatic asylum.
Yeah, this definitely should be published as an option.
I'd like more junior moderators to bully, please.
Okay, Volt.
Hey, first one of the day. Ooh, 2.
All right. Okay, that sounds like that is approved without objection. So. Aqua Frumple's been saying that for years, so this isn't anything new. All right, 5D, remove the reasons question from trustee endorsement. So Otto's proposing to remove this. I think there's been a little bit, there was a bit of chatter about doing this for various reasons. So I don't like this idea, largely because even though you can say what you will about the outcome of it, at least having the reasons field in place requires that whoever is submitting the form at least put a little bit of thought into it.
Yeah, I agree for those reasons. Like, if it does prevent me from just shooting a nomination or a nomination for trustee, then being done with it. Like, I do have to actually write, I have to think, and I have to at least give some kind of indicator as to what I was looking for. So I think it's good to do that, to reject this.
The intent of the trustee rank is like it's supposed to mean like the trust of the community. Like you have been around for a while and like you've established yourself as a community member. To me, if we were to remove this question, I would want to increase the number of required endorsements. Because the trade-off would then be, yes, it's less work per endorsement, but if the goal is to demonstrate the trust of the community, then I would want to increase the number of people who would need to vouch.
Yeah.
Chief.
Yeah, I'd keep the current system. Like, it has its we don't exactly look at like what's written explicitly, but just like see that they put in the thought about it, and we don't really have that with the other system. And also, you don't know if there's enough people like within like the time zones, the time range that someone could be online to actually get the noms.
Frumple, question. It's just kind of hypothetical, but you did express interest in changing the trustee system. If you were to do that, what would the goals of any new system be, regardless of what it looked like? Okay. I would be in favor of that. I just don't have a full idea as to what that might be, because yeah, it's probably a better way to do it.
Yeah, that's a bit bigger than this one question. I mean, my preference would be to do nothing different than what we're doing now. But yeah, that's why like if we were going to accept this, I would do it with the condition that the number changes, but I'd prefer to leave it as is.
Absolutely. No, we don't need to turn this into moderator nominations, but for trustee.
Yeah. Also, I mean, again, the trust of the community, you can earn that in a lot of different ways, and participating in events doesn't affect anything. And also, that's really dependent on when the events are. Like it's
events, as in, they didn't mean like an in-game event. I think like is in a specific happening, like interaction.
No, that sounds like too much to put on too many people's shoulders.
This doesn't need to be the moderator nominations where you have to have a statement to show that they're deserving of being trustee. I honestly think that getting a trustee endorsement in the first place is pretty telling of if a person is worthy of it, because it's pretty hard to.
Are we
Well,
sure?
let's just
feel
say
like a
that
lot of
if-
people just give trustee endorsements just because people ask. Not really, they don't put much thought into whether they should or not.
That's true, but if you came here 2 days ago and you start asking people left and right about if they can endorse you, that's not really a way to get trustees. So at the very least, the person has had to have been on the server for some time and
So
gotten to be known.
the shortest
I
amount of
think
time that you can technically get trustee is 2 weeks after acceptance of membership.
I think that most people would only like they wouldn't have need to have positive interactions with someone, but at least interactions, like seeing them a couple times in game. And so yeah, that would be harder if you need more not nominations, endorsements. Yeah, and it. Oh no, so yeah, so I think I'm kind of losing the point pretty much that I think it's yeah, I do think that some thought like not if it's like if someone is like extraordinarily like fit, but just like have I seen this person a couple times in game? That's a normal question to ask, and like if you haven't, then you wouldn't give them the nomination, I'd say, or if you have bad experiences.
Yeah. I
Kitty,
will
also
say though, I mean,
that's
there's
why. Go ahead, Bob.
so there's been but there has been cases where folks like they've done this after hitting after hitting trustee. Like, wasn't Mercury like was Mercury trustee?
He got all the way up to mayor, but
Yeah, and I mean a lot of the players that have been genuinely destructive for the server, they either hit as a guest or they they go high in trustee. Like, I don't think I've seen anybody really stopped by trustee. It just serves as a yeah.
yeah, it's. I would also say, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, this is also why we have the staff review period, and like if for like if there was a situation where someone was up for and was receiving community nominations, like we can veto and hold them, and it's like all mods and admins have veto power over a trustee, and that puts a 30-day hold. So it's there are checks in the system. So I think I mean it's generally working as intended. I see no reason that it needs to be changed dramatically or like with this change at this point. I mean, if we want to talk about revamping the whole system, then that's I think a separate conversation. But as of right now, I'm against.
I think that'd be a good place to have to see like just a general. Okay, well, no change, but we look at getting started on this the revamping process. Like we take some community feedback. Like, how would this be changed? And
I personally, I think it's working well enough, and it's not intended to be a super burdensome process. So I'm gonna go as far as to say I would just let it rest, and if there is further demand, like if it becomes clear that we need to look at it, then I would start looking at it at that point. But I don't think we need to even start looking at it right now.
well, yeah,
I mean, if it's something that like you happen to be thinking about in the shower, then go for it. But I don't think that we need to
Chief,
make
I
any
never shower.
changes. Well, that's a you problem. And
Yeah.
that is now permanently on the internet. Great job.
Look,
So okay, so I think this is going to be rejected without change.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, cool. 5E, clarifying the rule on relocating franchises.
Chief, Kitty has a comment.
Railway. Railway stations are not franchises. So this
No,
entire
Otto's asking
rules.
about franchises in the stations because, as you've probably seen Otto at the stations, he puts franchises from other people in those stations. And if he was to say like change it around that station, I think he's asking about modifying.
That's not what he's asking.
Wait, what? Yoshi just... Oh, Yoshi has admin perms on the wiki still.
Oh yeah, I'll fix that. Thanks.
They moved me frickin' page.
I'll fix that. Hang on.
Move me page. I'm annoyed.
Moving pages is it's something any trustee can do. Vulpicula.
Oh, okay. Whoopsies.
Oh, okay. So no, railway stations are not franchises. The way that rule was written is with the intent of if you have 2 franchise spots within the station, the railway station owner can switch them without telling the franchises inside of the railway station. But the franchises, like, they can't spill out into other bits of the railway station unless the railway station owner is okay with that. I mean, it's the same principle as how malls work. Railway stations are not franchises. That they're not covered by this rule at all. Because franchises, yes, they're built by one company, but they're not like connected to each other. And like they have a bunch of locations in different towns. Like they're not physically connected.
I guess I'm not following it then. I guess you better explain it from Rumple because I guess I'm not following then.
They're
Okay.
building buildings, yes.
Typically underground, but yes. Yeah.
It does, but
It feels different.
Yeah.
So I would say, to me, it feels like there's a bit of a difference because a franchise is that plus it has a kind of commercial purpose to it, whereas transport infrastructure feels different. But I think we generally have had the opinion that transport, since that is our main purpose.
I think an answer might have just gotten. Yeah. Turns out we actually did also rename it as private property rules according to a topic that Kitty submitted that passed, so it would extend to railway.
Yeah, I do remember that getting passed.
I see. I will also counter the whole thing. When you do move a railway station, there are things like, yeah, if the warp is to go to a certain area, you are potentially destroying warps at other stations, and thus are potentially destroying, private property. And also by moving the station, you're generally also screwing with a rail line, which, yeah.
So hang on, that's different. It's generally been accepted that once, if you have an airport or something, and you wanted to redo the airport or move the gates around, and kind of swap planes around, to kind of compact a bunch together from the same airline or something, that's generally been seen as okay for the airport owner to unilaterally do, and then if they are staff or working with staff, to then fix the warps so that to try and minimize the inconvenience to the airlines.
Yeah, an example
I
that would be
believe-
like with Court, whenever he redid Epsilon multiple times, he would fix the warps with it.
Right. So I believe
But,
similar. If you're talking about moving a town owner moving railway station, is that what this is about?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
That's what Kitty's saying.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay, yeah. So then in that case, then I mean it's like whoever built the station, then like they have the ability to decide if they need to move it. Because if a town builds a railway station and then it gets service, that's different in terms of the ownership. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I follow. So okay. So then in that instance,
I think we should just go with Otto's proposal and keep it simple.
yeah, I don't think there's really any major change from this, and I think it's there is enough potential reasons. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be the kind to move it, but it's better safe than sorry.
yeah. Okay. So then in that case, then yes, go with autos. Clarify, I mean, like actually fully implement Katie's proposal from a while back of clarifying that these rules apply to all sorts of, or to all kinds of private property within a town. Because it seems like that hasn't been fully implemented, or at least make that
No,
clear.
it was right. Like it was like private property is now just just called franchise, but like
No, it was the other way around. No.
Yeah, it was the other way around.
Kitty proposed taking franchises and expanding that categorization and naming it the private property rules, and just to encompass all these extra situations. So that's what we were saying of that was proposed and it was approved, but it wasn't fully implemented on our end. So no,
I think this sounds better to like just reflect better what the general use of the word is, and like
I think-
private property is more
I think
vague.
we're
With-
straying from the original proposal here.
Yeah, with that, so I think for this proposal, like what Otto suggested here, approve that as proposed. For Kitty's, what he sent, like the whole franchises private property thing, I think we just need to go back to that
December
proposal and what we
2020
did with
GSM.
it. Thank you. I think we just need to go back to that and figure out what we need to do with it based on the current setup, and then go from there.
Private property owners? No, shit.
Oh, the who?
Leasers? Does leasers count?
Let's see. No. Okay. I think that's fine
Yeah.
then.
So I'm sorry, I was trying to get that searched up for Kitty. What do I need? What are we exactly doing?
Sure, why not?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one a little bit better.
Yeah.
Working on it. That's exactly what I'm doing. That's what I was asking.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I think we have settled 5e.
Hopefully everything is easier from here on out. Transit, event, IAT, lake rename. Cool.
Right. Okay. Cool. On to 6A, B84 by Captain Obi.
Roads.
Frumple, what were you saying about not liking roads anymore after Cody had that interchange?
Oh. Simple road. It's fine.
Number available?
Let me pull the road list. Yes, it's available.
By me.
Simple. All the terms are there. Fine with it. Makes sense too. Any opposition?
Nope.
Going once.
Approved.
Going twice. Approved. 6B, A746 Phase 1. This looks like a resubmission.
Why should we submitted it? Like, the agendas don't expire unless...
No, we asked him to resubmit because we were confused on his permissions. It's A746 has been approved actually about 2 years ago. I found the past GSM proposal a while ago from Lithium, and I've done lots of the world edits for Lithium. So the road actually built pretty far past that phase 1. You can actually see it on Dyne map. A lot of it's kind of re-getting his permissions for things that have gone inactive in that time and other things like that.
I see.
We never set a
Did-
formal threshold, but
Was it 6 months or something?
It was
no,
for 2 years ago.
I get you.
What's with the thing about the IAB that he's talking about?
So Avalon, he's trying to inactive bypass Avalon, which is
And that-
that town right there at the interchange. And he's saying his interchange goes too close to that town.
Yeah, the owner is Dieter. He's been offline for like 2 years, 1 month, so I don't think he's coming
Yeah,
back.
let's just approve it for simplicity's sake.
We had him resubmit that mainly because of that permission, because I could not track down the original proposal whether he had perms for that. So we were saying resubmit for that. And then also the route, that we could tell about the route for that still.
this is intended to terminate in Bird Hall.
So the full route is actually to go to Fenton. You can actually see on Dyne map. Pull up the road layer to give better instructions. So if you see on D33, that's Fenton. There's the remnants of the A6 there, and you can see above north of Fenton is the current terminus, this A746. It's supposed to interchange technically there in Fenton. The rest of that goes underground through Bird Hall, because again, he went off of prior permissions that he had from Robang to do everything underneath Bird Hall. Like the road exists under Bird Hall already. You can go there on Dynmap and like run through like that road.
Right. Okay.
I only know this because I had done all those world edits.
Okay.
Mainly, I guess they kind of got lost in translation, but I mainly just had him resubmit first permissions to finish up the road that we know it's still working in progress to get him to finish it.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it's
that
two parts
all.
he still has to finish. He has to finish the interchange at Avalon around M20, and then finish the interchange at Fenton, and then the road is technically done.
So phase 2, that's all done as well, right?
Yes,
That's going
except
from the circle line
part
down
at Fenton.
to. Okay. But generally, the bit that goes from the circle line to Bird Hall is done.
Yes.
Okay.
You're watching the road come along slowly. He's done actually a really wonderful job with it.
Try to pull up the past GSM agenda so you can show what he did there. Because I
Rumple, you're about to go off. Rumple, I thought I heard a sigh coming from you.
Well, kind of on the wayside because past GSM we actually had Castle supervising this.
Yep. It has been coming along quite well though. Like, yeah, it's every now and again I do a world edit for it, and it's a little bit further complete.
Yeah, there's only maps in the past GSM, but they're mentioned all around. You search it. The point is, I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure you got the updated permissions.
Why did you
Just go
folks make a Greg's?
I think in terms of if we're just looking at the administrative stuff of getting clearance to do the bypass and things like that, I'm fine with that, and kind of reauthorizing the route just to get this thing done. I'm okay with that as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, the Chang Hall to Bird Hall was that's all, but I'm just fine with it.
Yeah.
Get it done. I'll keep
can I-
pushing him and working with him to get it done.
yeah. The only thing that I don't like about this is the co-signing of things with letters. But I think that was just a convenience thing, if I remember right. I don't think that the actual roads in that area have letters off the end for the most part. So
They don't. The A6 has a different route technically from that map. That's actually an older map from the A6 from the past A6 proposal.
okay. So in that case, again, I'm fine to approve. But I would really, it makes it a lot harder to understand what the current status of things are if people are reusing old maps without good reason.
Oh yeah.
So I would have preferred if there was an updated and new map for this. Because then I'm aware that I'm aware that in this case that communication is going to be hard, and so I'm just, since this road is almost done, I'm just more stating it for the benefit of everyone else, that if anyone else runs into a situation where you have to like re-reference old material, that it's much easier for us if you just use a new map every time.
Yeah.
If you have good reason to include an old map, like for reference, that's fine. But it helps to be clear of what you're talking about. So
Yeah, my intent was just to make sure staff knew this is going on, permissions were fixed up, and that way you can get it done.
yeah, I'm fine clearing those and letting it proceed.
Okay.
All right.
Events now, right?
7A, Formula MRT.
It's just mostly, well, the only problems were with technical issues with his computer, if I'm recalling correctly.
Oh, it's hardware issues, not issues with him running the event.
Yeah, he had internet issues, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seemed they did. I
Well,
remember there was a few questions over like a rule thing, I think, right?
my memory is hazy on it. I did attend it, but it was a month ago or so.
And also, I mean, it's a trial. It's a trial run of something. Like it's going to be a little bit rougher on the edges anyway. So,
Did anyone currently listening to the GSM attend it? Like, if so, was it good? Was it bad?
I was there. As Chief said, there were a couple bumps. Like I think there were a rules thing with a horse, and also some things with cleaning the horses. But overall, it was fine. There weren't any serious issues to the point where I would recommend against him getting an event grant.
yep, I don't see anything major.
Yeah, no, it
I
was
think
fine.
having it done a trial run and seeing that there is demonstrated interest and that there is good planning happening, I'm very pleased to see that. I think there are minor improvements that I think that I would probably suggest, like personally. One of which would be that it may be a good idea for Harbor to designate a backup kind of staff person to help run the event and explain things to people if he ends up having further internet issues. But that in and of itself is not like that's, I think, just an improvement that he can make, and that's not going to block me from approving the grant. I also will just point out I like how he is when he was in some of the planning phases and identifying towns to do it in, that he was specifically looking for towns that weren't super hugely ranked, that were lower ranked but still like had potential to be community sites. I think that's really cool to be branching out into more locations of events.
Yeah.
I'm not sure in the V4s, but I know the V3s. There's like a sword you can use to kill them. I'm not sure about the V4s.
Or like I think, yeah, I think if you're using the official fast boy,
the same one. He's using the same ones he used in the Grand Prix, the ones that you had to do that for. That's what he said in the proposal.
So that is a problem that I think needs to be addressed then. So I would say use an official fast boy V4, because those we have tested that you can kill them.
No, Chief, that's not what I'm saying. The V4 is what he used in the Grand Prix, and that's what Frumple had to do that command to kill.
Oh, I thought that Ava's saying that you can use that the V4 spawn egg has high sharpness on it.
It was that
to kill them.
he was imported a spawn egg that wasn't a fast boy, that somehow was really, really weird and had some weird properties like teleporting around that regular fast boys don't have.
Okay, was that?
Yeah,
wait.
I'm pretty.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually saw one in my town for some reason.
Yeah. So that is a red flag that we would need to keep an eye on during the event itself. But again, that's a mechanical thing. That's not like a fundamental problem with the event. The only other change that I would encourage is that, and again, this is a mechanical thing, is looking at the different towns and possibly being willing to customize the number of laps per town. For example, Bawabik's roads don't, like, there's not really that much of a road network in Bawabik because like it's pretty compact. But about some of these other towns, you might be able to have more. So I think just as he's planning to, no, that's what I would. Yeah, I agree. That's what I would do. Yeah.
Personally speaking, I have some experience. I ran NASCAR, so yeah, the whole thing with the laps and whatnot is something I have a little bit of experience with. So I might reach out and offer help.
Yeah, I mean, I think it.
Anyway, it's not our thing to
made a good point. Yeah, that's a good
but
point.
Like, it's nice to give them advice, but we can do that outside of a staff meeting.
Yeah. So, but I think that the one thing that we do need to manage is don't use custom horses because those have caused problems. But Okay, great. Then in that case, I'm
The mount
Cool.
seems fine.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this. I love racing events like this.
motion to
New.
approve in motion to fund in full. Any objections for full bid?
Nope.
No, for
Full bid going once, going twice. Full bid. That is
Why
all
did you
set.
spell it
Okay.
like this?
Because
Reading is giving me a headache.
it's
Game
a
of gamming,
Because
game of
gamming is a meme. I had to explain that to one person already.
I think
I mean, I know it's a meme, but I don't understand it.
You should ask Pi.
That's pie. Okay.
is
So,
Ava here right now? Like maybe he can give some answers to questions we might have.
He was in game. He was, oh, I see. He's in the Discord.
Let's see. So my first question was basically give more details on what people said, which he did. He said that 5 people will not have the time to, 5 people will have the time to participate, which sounds decent enough, I guess, although it'd probably be good to have closer to a dozen people. Targeting to host the event July 17th to 21st. Yeah, that's kind of an issue because weekdays are not really a good time to host events, but it seems that he might be interested in changing the event to not be on weekdays. How will you recruit participants? Well, he's actually on the Discord now, so that's less of an issue.
and that abates Otto's concerns about not being on Discord because that was resolved literally this morning.
Yes.
Well, if you read his comment, he did say specifically provide more details on numbers.
If I may interrupt, I was asked in DMs, in PM, in game. He just came up to me and asked me if I would participate or prepare some stuff before the game, if I was willing to do that.
That works.
So-
Because basically I screwed up and somehow missed on adding the comment by Avanish until after Autobus sent in that comment.
Okay.
Okay.
Good luck with the event,
Um,
Avnish.
Well, so looking at this again here. So is a sort of like a part of another game show like Survivor and Big Brother. So, I mean, the concept of this has run in the past. I mean, Yoshi's done it twice now, with kind of culminating together all of his game show, or like the big series game shows all into one thing. So, unfortunately, to me, the way that this proposal reads is that it's still being formulated out, and the thing that pops out specifically is what events are what are the specific rounds that are going to be happening? Like, are you going to do a round of Big Brother, and are you going to do a round of Tar? And to me, it doesn't look like this. The way it's written and the way it's being presented sounds like there has not been a whole lot of thought into. Well, now he's saying I've prepared the rounds. I've prepared the rounds and everything. The builds are so not yet done.
Well, I'm assuming it assumes it's an element. I'm assuming
okay.
I'm assuming that it involves an element of secrecy, so he can't just say, I'm going to be doing this on round 1 and this on round 2, because that would ruin the premise.
Sure, but
I mean, he
But-
can leave
and
show
again,
staff members later that aren't participating, I guess.
I would
but
like to know how much exactly he has worked on it so far, because if he's wanting to start it within a week, then I'd hope he has at least the vast majority of it done.
I'm more
How
concerned
much
about using it.
would you say is done, like Avinash? Like half of it, 2/3? Like, we can always delay the event if he really needs it. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm more
It just
concerned about using stuff that Yoshi
needs a
did.
week or two.
Are we okay? I guess did he get approval from Yoshi to use the branding stuff of those shows?
Is he, or is he just taking inspiration?
I just want to make sure of that because you said like it, and I'm just like trying to make sure. Like it almost this is kind of reminding me in the sense of Game X, where like Yoshi did a round of each of his games, and it seems like this is kind of like Game X.
yeah, that's the idea.
I mean,
So, I
it's
mean,
not
again-
like he's using Yoshi's assets.
Well, I'm just trying to make sure of it because there's not. It just says like it, and I'm just trying to make sure it's like a parody.
Or it's like similar concept, but has its own unique twist to it.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that like there's detail in
Yeah.
that sense.
Yeah, the thing is that it does say it'll be at the end of the month, and he says he'll need a week or two. That is probably plenty of time for him to finish. And yeah, I'd imagine more preparation work is done, more planning in the meantime. So
Okay.
I'd be willing to
So-
give us a chance.
Yeah, so big picture, I'm okay chancing it.
Avinash, do you mind if I ask who you're getting help from? I'm just curious, I want to know.
Skelly asked who will be helping you. Needon, based on Ava's response, he says, I was hoping Needon to know will help out during the event, but he said that he was busy during that time. I'm also trying to enlist assistance from other people.
All right.
So,
Hoping, so not confirmed. Well, in the comment it says I was hoping Needon will help out. Oh,
yeah, not confirmed though.
yeah. I'm just trying. I think Volpe's asking who's confirmed that they will help.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like anyone has confirmed that they will.
I'd feel a lot more confident in supporting this if I did know somebody else, was there to support you, because I don't want you getting overwhelmed or. But yeah,
I
he says he was
am.
busy.
Yeah, so I said that I was on holiday like that week. So I asked if like it could be another week, and he said that maybe he would do that. But he said it would only be help with like world edits and like preparing stuff like that, and
So
not
he's
like
staff
any
out?
thought work. So he's doing the planning all on his own, as far as I know.
All right.
So we need staff help more or less, like in a sense. Some world at it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I would encourage you to get help with planning for somebody else, like, especially since this is your first event.
So,
Because if
So
you
the
again,
only-
sorry,
the
go ahead.
only thing otherwise that stands out to me is so the interest poll, and I know that this is not a definitive assessment, but so the interest poll yielded 5 probablys, a couple of maybes, and 5 nos. Do people like looking at the prize amounts? So 1,000 for the overall winner, no prizes for runners up and stuff like that, and then 1,500 to be distributed in the individual rounds. Are people okay with those prizes?
It's a little bit high for first event, but no, actually, no,
To
hold on.
me,
Be 3,500, right?
2,550 for overall.
Oh, I see. Sorry, it's misread.
So,
It's not that bad, especially considering how much money's in the economy already.
well, I don't think it's about inflation. I think I'm just trying to size it relative to
We don't want to pull a Federal Reserve, you see.
other events that we have approved in the past. So, do people think that these prize amounts are okay, or does anyone think that we need to adjust them?
For first event, I'd rather they be lower rather than higher.
Avanish is open to changing it, whatever needed.
No,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, Ava, I'm okay with what we have here. I just wanted to make sure that we were talking about the prize amounts just because we were talking about the event, just big picture mechanics to begin with. And the prize amounts oftentimes, but not always, can be adjusted. So I just want to make sure that we had the space for that. To make sure that we were okay with those.
And as Frumple says, yeah, the scale is probably fairly big, so it would justify some of the amounts.
Okay, so then in that case, then we would just want to make sure that there is a second person working on this then, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you do need like a staff to help you fully, I'm sure at least one of us can make time.
So I guess the question is, are we approving this in full, or?
I mean, Volp, it sounds like is motioning a full bid here.
Yeah.
I was going to say maybe a contingent approval based on he finds someone to help, just to make sure it's got someone with him.
My wife's or like yeah.
Yeah.
We can withhold. So
yeah, I'd be interested in just approving this in full for now. And if things really do hit the fan, we can always reverse.
The other thing too is if the prep work is done well to begin with, then it may be very manageable by one person day of. I think day of management versus doing the pre-work, that's going to entail a lot.
But that's not the case here. We were saying that Avanish still had some stuff to figure out, and we're trying to make sure that he does get that done.
I'd be willing to put faith in Avanish here.
I don't know if we necessarily need to put a rider on requiring supervision. I think if we just said we're concerned about this and we would hope that he would reach out as needed, but that we will be considering that when we give the payout. I think that's fine. That captures it pretty well.
Yeah.
All right. So then that's a full bid then.
I think so.
Okay, approved in full. All right. 7C. This is
why name it an expo then?
Yeah.
branding or something. I don't know.
So why? Why are you like this?
His Pulsa contest. That's what Frump and I were saying last night. I talked to him last night about the station. The way that I understand from him is he had built a full town that they're going to put the franchises in. And I tried to clarify with him. Yes.
So it's basically a franchise building contest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Similar to Seg of Sal.
It does seem he wants it. Does he want to edit the station, or just
He wants
does
to
he want
replace
the
the
station?
station. I told him that similar to if he's going to do the community town route, that it has to be the town actually has to be sizable enough to be deemed that mayor level to do that.
Is the station like as a schematic? Is it in a lab somewhere? Because I honestly wouldn't mind making an exception here if it is key to the event.
No. at this current moment, the station is basically empty. He was trying to get this pasted. He didn't get to it last night.
He doesn't even ask for like editing permission, only to have it renamed, which only comes after such an event and if the town is big
No,
enough.
he said that he's going
I mean,
to
if-
replace it.
Yeah, that's been retracted. If you look down
Okay.
in his comment on the next page, that he says that specific bit is retracted.
Yeah,
So
I was just mentioning that I talked to him yesterday about it. I was just mentioning that I talked to him about it. That's why he retracted it, is because I talked to him last night.
Great.
Or talked to them.
So, the thing, so franchise building contests, I mean, so there's a couple things that come to mind for me right away. One is there's always demand for franchises, and it seems that people, at least in towns, when you've got a town and people are just kind of chilling out, they're asking anyone got franchises, and then you get crickets. So that's just to me that there's not a whole lot of originality of new franchises coming on the market all the time. Like, in other words, original franchises coming on are rare events that happen, but not a lot.
They did, but they didn't link it. I just put it in Meeting Live.
Chief, I will also say regarding the franchise thing, I mean, we have had successful franchise building contests that have worked. Like, I don't know what it was. He was doing some guy was doing a theme of environmentally friendly or so. There was actually quite a lot of entrants for that.
So, okay, so I have a couple concerns with the mechanics of this event. So one is, it doesn't look like there's any explicit rules prohibiting someone from just pasting in an existing franchise. And I don't know what the take is on would that be allowed or not. Because
like
again, so what are the judging criteria? And specifically, are the submissions, do they have to be original, or do they have to be like handmade, like new builds? Like, they can use an existing franchise like company, but they can't use the standard location template. So it just what's the stance on that? The other one is the prize amounts to me seem high. This seems more on the scale of if we're talking a bigger building like the hotel contests. If I remember, I mean, I can look it up, but I mean, like the hotel building contests have been around this number for first, second, third. Maybe more if I remember right.
Good point.
Okay, so I'm looking at the Expo 2019 of Creeperville. It had like a lot of places, a lot of spots didn't get filled. So in that way, it was a pretty bad example. But there were.
I think this is
No, it's also a franchise building competition.
Well,
yeah,
but Frumple, he's calling it
a franchise building competition. So it was mostly franchises.
This
Better to
it
compare
sounds
this would be to UACAM Beach or Seg of Sal, in the sense that it's a hotel building similar to the hotel building contest that Time has ran.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, Katie, I'm saying that's a different style of contest. Like, that's an this isn't really an expo, it's a contest. Like, an expo is to show it off. There's not prizes. There's prizes in the sense that there's a competition of builds, and that's what I'm saying. It's very similar to the Seg of Sal building. contest and the UACAM Beach contest at the time is ran.
Confusingly, this also has the word expo in its name, which
Yes.
it's not. Yeah. So, I mean, again, the thing that sticks out to me, like, I mean, a franchise, depending on what the rules are, can be way smaller of a scale than a hotel, especially if you are allowed to paste in, or like if you're allowed to use existing assets to help in that process. I'm actually, based on the fact that there's some pretty major rules questions, inclined to say no bid, and it needs to be resubmitted with rules before we can fully evaluate.
Melcy did say that they have plots, so maybe clarification on the size of those plots.
Well, that's not. I mean,
I'm just saying, like,
that helps.
I'm just trying to outline
I mean,
points
that's
of what
just
you want
effort.
to see.
Like how much effort is it's not the size of like a hotel, but like if it's like 10 by 10 plots or like
No, I'm just outlining
30 by
ways that
30.
MLC can resubmit, like points
Yeah,
that they
like
know what to do.
Yeah, the things that we need. So I would say, I mean, big picture, I'm looking for how much effort are we asking people to put in? The question of, are we requiring originality, or to what extent are we requiring originality? What is the judging criteria? Who's going to be judging? Because that's not stated. And the timeline. Like, how long do people have to build? How long do people have to judge? And so I think those questions need to be addressed before we can effectively consider this. So I'm saying no bid
There
until
seems to be an like open vote thing, but like it doesn't explicitly say who can vote.
yeah, that's a question that needs to be
is up
addressed.
to- Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay. So CC, did you get those points?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm motioning for a no bid. Any objections to that?
No, he has to resubmit. Yeah,
Correct.
with correct.
Resubmit with that kind of information, and of course
Yeah.
anything else that he would feel pertinent.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Denied, no bid. 8A, Dulwich.
Pretty obvious approval.
I'm very much fine with this.
Hut's just going to slowly get Tranquil Force to go south, continue southern expansion.
I'm fine with this. Any objections?
No.
Seeing that it's in broadcast, we've approved it. 8B.
Oof.
Okay, so bunch of IABs all in one go. This is.
The triple bypass doesn't sound good.
Oh yeah.
It just medically wise, it sounds weird.
Yeah. On the surface, this looks fine. If anyone wants to confirm anything.
I'm back. What did I miss?
We're on Otto's bypasses.
I mean, if there was concerns, I think Vicky would have probably said something concerning, like she was hanging out today in chat.
Yeah, I'm Mayor of Borali. I don't see anything wrong with this. That town north of Borali has been abandoned for years now.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty resounding approval then. Any objections going once? Going twice. IAB's approved.
I would submit an IAT for that at some point.
Well, you can do that later. Okay. Last thing on the list is Captain Obi would like to rename Lake 39 to, how the hell do you pronounce that? Oh, it's right there. Eileen C.
It would probably be pronounced as Alien C.
Well, that's the pronunciation that he gave. So
Yeah, E can mean different things, either A or Eh. I'm gonna call it
so you're saying
Elion.
that we need people to submit items using the International Phonetic Alphabet. Got it.
Yes, that's the new requirement.
Okay. As for this, okay, so just confirming that so since it looks like the evidence of approval from the towns around, I would assume that like Captain Obi's gotten
It was
approval from other
Discord
people, but
poll that kind of got a little bit mixed up.
okay. But generally, it to those who saw it before it got removed or whatever, did it seem like it was okay?
It was five votes to one, but they had the names mixed up because that's the email chain that Miso is asking about.
I honestly wouldn't have removed the picture just for clarity. But yeah, I recall that it was that one of the
Yeah, I think so,
options was
B.
A and Alien C was B, and people voted for B overwhelmingly, except B was before A. So Missa or someone thought that they might have gotten confused because B was before A in the emotes list.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that answers the question of
Yeah, Obi put a screenshot of
Of
meeting
his-
live to confirm people's choices.
Yep, I just saw that. So okay, gotta love having travel right before a general staff meeting. So, okay, in that case, I'm okay with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are the towns big enough? But that's the only thing. I
There,
mean, there's
Yeah, Las
Mhm.
Paz is Adavanga is mayor.
Itavanka got mayor very recently. Las Playas is senator. I think San Ostend is. I don't remember if it's councilor or mayor.
I mean,
I think
don't
with
know how
that
big
size,
Oh,
it's
it's
fine.
it's ranked.
I don't-
I didn't know
yeah.
it was ranked. Oh.
I don't know of any other towns, or especially any other big ones that are on that lake. So
Yeah, they had labeled them too for us on the map.
yeah.
Okay,
So I
San
think,
Ostend.
well, I mean, I think he's got the coverage, he's got the support. They're
Yeah.
all on board, so I'm okay with this.
Yeah,
The biggest town is
Uh,
like Frogs, and Frog said he's fine with it. So
Okay. Yeah, sounds good to me then as well.
yay, we're done.
Okay, we're done.
One thing, yeah, I do have the wiki page up and running for folks who want to add. I've just made a temporary little format. I'll polish it up later, but let me just throw a link in the broadcast.
Well, no, from
He's always been doing this.
So Frumple, so
I agree with
anyone who
Yoshi's
has
moves.
so anyone who has trusted permissions, which is trustees and up, they can move pages, but only staff can delete pages.
Just what he did was a small capital. I personally, I disagree with it, but I'm not really going to bother fighting it. It's tiny.
The new page or the new title of where it's been moved to fits the style of the rest of the wiki, so I can see why it happened. So
I don't like standards. Look at me. I pride myself on being unhip and uncool. Why else do you think I hang out here?
Standard Volpe.
Well, yeah, I make my own standards. That's why I don't get paid. I'm not a professional, but yeah.
are there any questions?
Oh, hey, a third one.
Aqua had one earlier. Do you want to bring that one back up, Aqua?
Yes, if we could bring back any questions that came up. We're just going to go straight to the Q&A. As we, yeah, if you have a question and you would like to speak, you can go ahead and use the request to speak button, and we can bring you in.
There's Aqua's question.
Obi, to answer your question of do staff want an IPA, I think the
Yes.
nerds of us who understand IPA might appreciate it. Otherwise, go ahead and if you want to put it on your wiki page, like if you wind up creating a wiki page for it, then you can put it there. I mean, whatever's useful. But yes, IPA for those of us nerds who speak IPA, it is useful.
At first, I thought you were referring to the beer brewing standard, and I was kind of excited there for a second.
We are not referring to India Pale Ales. We are referring to the International Phonetic Alphabet, which I specifically put IPA of Bawabik on my user page, and I think on the Bawabik town page.
Submerged Subways question?
Submerged Subways question. Frumple, I think that is for you to, if you want to speculate on anything longer than a year out.
You folks should donate them.
I think Volp has to do a stupid thing if we make a profit again this year. So
well, the B movie thing raised lots of money, and the only casualty was my throat. It's not going to be the B movie this time. It'll be something else. Why do you hate fun?
I mean, but we've had an upward trend of decreasing the losses and then getting profit for 2 years now. So, and the trend's been going up for 5 years.
Fuck, well, what the hell?
Are there any other questions from stuff from today's meeting that people want us to answer while we are all still here? Because it clearly chat is done with the meeting and chat is going off into its own chaos. So
Yeah, sure, we raised 2K. I go bold. I go donate the charity that can donate the hair to cancer or whatever the hell. Yeah, I'll donate to cancer directly. That was how I meant to say that.
as I said earlier today, that clearly the IQ of this chat has been dropping precipitously over the course of the day. So
Chief, small.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of verging on silly quest territory. There was no trustee notes today, but Leek did say he wanted to do one on the anniversary. So you're gonna do like a readout then, or?
We'll deal with that later. I
don't know how that
If
works. It's not
nobody
triggered
else
yet.
does, then I'll do it.
you don't want the trustee meeting to exist at all. Let's be real.
Be nostalgic if Skelly does it though.
Yeah, I think it would actually.
Volp, I can't make any promises for anything happening on the day of the anniversary because that is a work day and I have to do work.
Yeah, sure.
Because I, as I hope you all know, I do have a day job. So,
No.
He has a life.
I know, like I do other things outside of running the server. So
Not allowed on this server.
London, I haven't been to Menards in probably like a year. So
You should change that.
I have no need to go to Menards.
But Menards needs you, Chief. Menards needs you.
I think we're starting to get back to general territory.
I'm fully aware that I started the meme, but like I have no reason to go to Menards. So, oh my god, okay. Whatever. I'm not gonna do a Menards live stream, okay? If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I
Yes.
thinking is
Okay. We're done. Seeing that the questions have devolved into silly questions territory. That's it. Thank you all, Kitty and others streaming. You can end your streams. We will be back here in 2 weeks for an ISM, or is it 3 weeks? No, it's 3 weeks. 2. Right.
2 weeks,
right,
Plains
close it
Line
up.
should be opening then.
Okay. All right. That is all. Thanks everyone for coming. And please clean up after yourselves before we come through and destroy everything. Goodbye.
I gotta get running too. I should probably pass.